Welcome to the Chattabox with your host Nicole Parchani. On this episode, I'm chatting with my homegirl, Hailey Greaux. Hailey is an American global citizen and has spent a large portion of her life living on island Sint Maarten. She's lived on the island for as long as I can remember that I honestly thought she was a local. In this episode, we chat about her journey to the island, our experiences being a part of the Caribbean public speaking scene, her career in the service industry, and her new project being the host of Honey on the Radio. It's so interesting. I don't even remember when we met each other, but like I swear once we met, we were like in each other's life, like in so many different
So many
organizations. It was
different
crazy.
ways.
Like everywhere I went, Hailey was there.
It was so great. It was so great because I was like, oh, thank God I have someone with me for teen times. Like when I saw you in teen times and then debate and then interact and moot court and everything, I was like, okay, good. Like this is good.
Yeah, I
This is
swear,
good.
like we've traveled together so much. It is insane. And it's like it's not even something that I would have ever had predicted either. But yeah, we have like traveled the Caribbean like to Europe and like all yeah, even
Puerto
where
Rico,
did you
yeah,
go on the yeah, I was going to say like the Puerto
yeah.
Rico trip. Like there's just that is so insane. Like you I feel like were definitely a huge figure in like public speaking and debate and like that
Oh,
whole
stop
arena,
it.
you
Thank
know.
you.
Yeah, like
Thank
cuz I mean when I was there, when I joined all that stuff, like you were already there. Like you were already like a part of it.
But it was also too, Mr. Arundel was like pushing me to feel like that because he's like, listen, you had Jackie boss you around the year before, you had this happen the year before. You're the veteran now. Like you don't need to like take no shit from nobody. And I think it kind of got to my head a little bit, but also like the pressure that they used to put on me was ridiculous. Because all I
Yeah.
wanted to do was just freaking win. And I was like, why don't we just go there and
Yeah.
have a good time? They're like, no, you have to win. You have to
No, we
practice. You
got
have
to
to do this.
win.
And I was like,
But it
shit,
didn't
dude.
even matter. It
It
didn't even
didn't.
matter cuz it was all rigged. Like it didn't matter. So it's like no matter how hard we trained, it was rigged. So it was like there was no
It was
point
rigged.
to it.
And Moot Court in Holland was rigged too because they thought hands down we won. But because it was our first year in the competition, they didn't think that we deserved to win, which is why we got third place, which was still
I
fucking
agree.
bullshit.
We
Bullshit.
definitely got played. That was like I was really mad about that because like we were definitely the winners. Like it was obvious. There was no comp like we were the best team and they just could not let the American team not win.
Yeah.
So
And
like
that
we
American
got
team was
booted.
weak. That American team was
Yeah, we
so
beat
weak.
them. Like we
They were
literally
so
crushed
weak.
them.
I remember
We
sitting there
crushed
with
both of
Erica
them.
going over the arguments as you guys are going over, and I'm writing my notes to her, and I'm like, did they just say that? Like, did that just happen? And they still won. And like when you're a spectator, you can't react visibly. So we're always there exchanging notes back and forth on our legal pad, and I was just like fuming. I was like upset. I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like they didn't even know what they were talking about half the time. They just
No.
sounded really nice. That's the whole
But
shtick.
even still, like our argument was ironclad.
It
Like
was.
we crushed that shit. Like
We
we were
did.
that team. And it's not even like that we were being cocky. We were literally that team. Like we went in there, nobody knew who the hell we were. We were like it was our first time there and literally after the first day, every team knew about us
We were
cuz
so
we were that
fierce.
good.
But you know who the fiercest one on our
Yeah.
team was? Listen, Ariel had the fiercest look out of all of us. Every photo we
Ariel
took,
has that do not
she
fuck with
had
me
that don't
face.
fuck with me face for real. And I was like, wow. Like, even I remember I was sharing photos with Mike for my Moot Court article, and he was like, wow, that's an intense stare down. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Whew.
Intense, ice cold. Yeah, man. And I don't know, like I loved our team. Like I loved our defense team. Tati and me and Ariel were the squad. Like I enjoyed being a part of my court so much. It was so much fun. And I feel like we were like a family, which
We
was
were.
really what made it fun. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a competition for us. Like we were having fun. And as part of having fun, we were also the best. But no, I definitely yeah, moot court was definitely an experience, and
It was.
I
It
I
was.
really loved it. Like I it made me want to be a lawyer, but then I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. In the long term, I just like I knew it would be so complicated cuz like to do law on the island you have to know Dutch and I was like, well, that's just too much. And then if you go the American route, then you like have to live in the States because like what are you gonna do with an American law degree on a Dutch island? Like it
You
just
know,
doesn't work.
you'd be surprised because I meet a lot of people who are lawyers, but they don't study or practice Dutch law and they live here. And they do more consulting work than anything because,
Mm.
especially the expats that come down here, it's like they don't trust a local lawyer unless it's like a local friend that they've known since they've been visiting the island for a long time. And this local person's like, hey, this is the lawyer that I use. You should go and use them. So, like for me, I said to myself, I was like, I think I wanted to study that because I thought it was making my parents happy, and they were like, "Oh, thank God, she doesn't want a bar, she doesn't want a restaurant, she doesn't want to bartend," because that's kind of like the path that most of the people in my family, if it's either you go work for Caribbean Liquors or you open up your own bar and restaurant.
Yeah.
And so me, I was like, I'm argumentative. I like arguing. I was like, I don't have the patience to see blood and I can't be a doctor. So I was like, oh, let me do law. And then when people started saying, oh, you're good at this, you should do this, you should do that, that's when I started getting like picked to do more stuff. But really, it was Teen Times that put me out there because I remember Mike would have me speak at certain things where he's like, oh, Haley, take it away. And then it was Mr. Arundel who saw me at school and academy one day, and he heard me speak for the morning announcements. And he's like, "Yeah, come to my office. I have an opportunity for you." And it was my birthday that day. And he's like, "We're having a debate meeting at my house." And then he started telling me all the different names of the girls on the debate team. And I was like, "Oh, I know those girls. I used to go to LU with them." So when I walked into the meeting, everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's Haley!" And then they're like, "Oh wait, how did Haley get here? How? Oh, so Mr. Arundel's starting to look at kids from other schools now, huh?" So it was like this really, it was this, when Catty Girl, it literally was like Mean Girls debate edition. I shit you
I
not.
swear, it low key, there was tons of drama and debate, low key.
Oh my God. Like it was it and I said to myself, I used to carry that anxiety from debate. I was like, "Oh God, please don't let this happen at moot court. Don't let this happen anywhere else." And it's just like it happens inevitably. I think when you're in that environment and everybody's under pressure and you're kind of like taught to compete against each other, but they won't say it outwardly. They'll say it only to you in private. It plays with your head a little bit. It really does. Like it I don't, you know what it's like to be the one who was very low effort, but still would just like show up and be like, "Oh, okay, no problem. I'll read this done." And then everybody was like, "That was too easy for her. Why does she get to do this? Why does she get to do that?" Like people used to get upset at me.
But wait, let's back up. So I know like when I left the island, you were moving to New York to do like a whole tra la la. So like what was it for you when you like because let's first go to New York and like come back before we come back to how you got back to the island and into your radio show, which is freaking lit. Like tell me like what was it like when you moved to New York? Because like for me, like moving to America was definitely scary. I can imagine like when you were like deuces, I'm out, guys.
I'm done. Bye. Like it was a really bad time in my life because my parents, that's when they really were going through their divorce. And I was kind of always in the middle of their problems, like from a very young age. So at like 17, 18, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done doing this now. And then I got hit with some really big family news. And then it made sense why I couldn't like get all the scholarship stuff that I needed. Because me, I was trying to get to Holland. I was like, okay, I want to go to the University of Leiden. I want to get this thing going. Like, I was very motivated by moot court. And I thought that taking IB would have been the easier route for me because I knew that I didn't do so good in my CXC and I didn't want to stay in academy for 2 more years and do the law program there. So I was like, oh, let me go to IB. I go to IB and it's not what I thought it was going to be at all. It was a lot of fallacies and false promises and stuff like that. Because what they do is they took the IB program and then they modified it to the Catholic School Board. So the classes and the things that you needed for certain things to get to your higher level and your lower level classes and your diploma, they just would omit it. They'd omit certain history lessons. They would omit certain things, and you're like, okay, well then I'm not getting the full
Isn't that
IB.
censorship?
It is,
That's like
and
literally censorship.
then they tell the kids at the St. Dominic school that they are the only IB program in the Caribbean. And then you meet kids from LIDC and other places, and they're like, "We have a IB program in Antigua." We have an IB program in Grenada, you know. So you're like, oh, okay, so like this is how the foundation, like it's starting to crumble. Like so when that started happening, and then I was receiving a lot of backlash from the school board because they're like, oh, your grades aren't good, you can't go to moot court. I was like, excuse me, who the fuck are you to tell me I can't go to moot court? I was the best speaker of St. Maarten moot court, and I can't go there, you know. But that's also the kind of like that was when the start of like my ego was kind of like starting to sink in, and I was kind of like I remember Miss Rich said to me that I was a star, I was a shooting star, and I was burning out, you know. And I felt really disrespected at that moment. I was like 18 when she said that to me, and I was like, who the fuck is this bitch telling me I'm a burning star and I'm having my 15 minutes of fame? I was like, literally, I stopped showing up to school after that. Stopped showing up to school after
The
that. Stopped.
teachers are rude, man. I
So rude.
swear. The
I
teachers on the
literally,
island are so rude.
I stopped
So
showing up to
rude.
school. I moved in with the guy that I was seeing, which was my 6 year boyfriend. I moved in with him. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drop out of this program. I'm gonna do this competition and do the St. Martin debate LADC, and then figure it out. And he was like, okay, cool. I have a job in New York. I'm moving to New York, so I just had that in the back of my mind. And I was like, oh, if I want to go, it's an option. But then as moot court passed, and then St. Martin LIDC passed, I still wasn't happy. I still was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I really want to go. And he kept telling me, he's like, you know, I'm going to New York. It's happening. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to go to New York. Let's go to fucking New York and get out of here. So I got a job as a teacher's aide at the school that his sister worked for, and then he was working for Juilliard. You know, we picked up side jobs. We would walk dogs on the side. It was a very nice and glamorous, low, like not spending a lot, but still having a great time. We had an
I feel like
Airbnb.
living in New York is just a vibe.
It's the
Like
vibe. It
that's
really
the New
was.
York vibe.
It was, you know, so we started off in Upper East Side. We were there for a couple months. Then we went all the way to fucking Brooklyn and Canarsie, which is like the little Caribbean village over there. And we were there for at least like 6 or 7 months. And then we moved to Williamsburg, which is like the first stop right outside the city. And we were sitting nice. I remember I was walking, passing the Vice office every day. I was like 4 blocks away from Vice. I was right underneath the bridge on South Fourth and Kent, and it was a great experience, you know, just being in the city every day, taking the subway, going to a different spot to have lunch, meeting up with your significant other after work, and going through the park to walk and stuff like those. Those moments were the best. So I long for those New York moments because honestly, living in St. Martin sucks. Living in St. Martin fucking sucks.
Why does it
The money
suck? Like
sucks. The Because listen, like, okay, I'm sure you're making serious bank working at Microsoft, right? In New York, I was bringing in like at least 5, 6, sometimes 7 grand, depending on how much time I worked at the school or like how many other side jobs I could get. But here, dude, I work 2, sometimes 3 jobs. And radio, it's commission based. So, of course, I took that big leap of faith, you know, taking on more time in a job that doesn't bring in more bank. But here in St. Martin, if you're not working a government job or if you're not like part of a upper echelon of a company here, like you're not making shit, dude. You're not making shit. Minimum wage is still $3.95 after taxes. Like even my
yeah,
restaurant
I saw
jobs, I
like
don't
some
make money.
posts where it was like $4.90 or like I don't is that
It's
even I don't think that's guilders, but that's ridiculously
yeah,
low. Like I couldn't imagine working for
it's
$4
and like some
or
some places, like if you spent a long time there, then after every year they'll increase your wage by $1. Oh my god! But
wow,
still, like
$1.
it's bad, like unless you get into like real estate or you get into a job with sales and you're selling something that is of the essence and that you know with
Yeah.
your eyes closed it's going to continue to be selling, like you're hurting here. And that's why a lot of people here, they turn to doing other things and selling and gambling and doing all the things that they think is going to bring them quick cash. But the for me, I took my bartending job for granted. In a bar in one week, 3 days, I just needed 3 days. Give me the slowest days, let me work by myself, let me work the tables alone, and I'll make my rent. I used to like make my rent the first 2 weeks of the month working in bars and restaurants, but now I'm just paycheck to paycheck. Still holding on to my stimulus money. I still have like a couple $100 left. And every month I'm pulling
The
out.
island paid out stimulus money, or like, are you talking about like the
Oh,
American
the American,
stimulus
no, the
money?
American one. I couldn't qualify for the island stimulus because my employer hasn't been paying taxes on me. So
Of course.
they couldn't verify that I have been working all this time. And I was like, listen, I'm literally the mascot of this restaurant. I'm in every photo, every video. I served you and your wife like 3 weeks ago for dinner. And you mean to tell me that I'm not working there? And turns out what my boss did is she gave everyone an on-call contract, so nobody is insured, nobody gets service charge. Like it's so like you're getting screwed without Vaseline type of shit, and it was ridiculous. And even the
The
stimulus
American
money that they
government
gave
came
me,
in clutch
dude, they
with the
came in
stimmy
so
though.
quick. I signed up right when the second check went out. And I was like, yo, thank God for that fucking stimulus check. Like, seriously, thank God. Even, yeah, just thank God, literally. All my siblings,
Did
I
you get
said,
all three then, or did you only get the first two?
I got the last two.
The last two. So you didn't get the first one?
No, I didn't get the first one. I didn't. But that's okay. Money, I still got something. Something is better than nothing.
I feel you. I feel you. Yeah. I
It
definitely like I mean, at least America, I feel like at least they have their shit kind of together. It's like a little bit, trashy over here right now, but it's all good. Like I feel like on St. Martin, it's just like I don't know what the hell has been happening, but it just seems like things continue to get worse and like nobody like owns up to it. Like everyone's like living in some delusional bubble that I'm like, y'all, like this is a really dangerous situation that we're in and I don't see us doing anything to get out of it. Like it just seems to be getting worse and worse.
me, I'm low key hoping that they send one more stimulus check, just one more, just like let it be like something of like $1,000. This is for the people that still haven't gotten off their ass and haven't gotten stuff happening. It's okay. This is the last time we're helping you. This is the last one. I already get
I
that
mean, you
check.
could get
Fuck.
unemployment, couldn't you?
I mean,
Technically, because you're not employed in America.
but here's the thing, right? Like, I don't want to take that risk, and then they see that was employed here, and then I get myself into more trouble. Because it's not to say that like I'm not employed. Like I'm on the radio. If somebody wanted to type my name in and do a deep dive on me, they
But
could
it's
find.
different because, like, you're in
No,
a
no.
different country, though.
I mean, because the local banks here now are starting to ask me for my social security number. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Here? I mean,
Yes.
on the
And
island?
yeah, yeah.
I feel like
I
that is none of your concern.
I
Why
used
you
to
need to
say
know
the same
that?
thing, and then they're like, okay, well, you had this bank account opened up when you were 16 and you used your local ID, so we're not going to take it away from you. It's a local checkings account, but you can't have a savings account on St. Martin until you give us your social. And I said, fuck that. I don't need a
Why?
savings account because all Americans have to declare the monies that they make. Uncle Sam, if you got a
Wait,
barcode,
wait. I know you have an American passport, but you also don't you have a Dutch passport?
I didn't choose. So when I turned 18, like my parents had no foresight. They were like, "Oh, she's gonna go to the States. She's gonna do this. And then I'm American. So I'm in this process right now where I'm trying to reclaim my Cuban rights, and I'm trying to be naturalized Dutch because I never
Wait,
changed.
weren't you born on the island?
No, I was born in the States. I was born in the
Wait, then when
States,
did you move to the island?
2008.
I swear you have always been us on St. Martin. I swear you were a
A
St.
lot of
Martiner
people
born and
thought
bred.
that. Everyone thought that because me and my cousins, we all look so alike, and I kind of like jumped into line and kind of got with the program faster. But
Yeah, I
no,
feel you because like I grew up with Emily, so I just assumed like you were there too, and I had just not met
you had
the
not met
other
me.
Grayos, you know?
Like I probably like everyone thought that either I lived in St. Bart's the whole time, and then my dad decided to move over to St. Martin. Then people thought that we went to French side school, or my parents just had us homeschooled. And I was like, no, this is like our first time being on the island in 10 years. Like our parents, especially my dad's side of the family, they all left the island in the 80s. They were like, fuck this place. It's a bad place. There's a lot of drugs and crime. And no, it's no good.
Still there.
Yeah, it's still there. And it's like
Still there.
and it's funny because my dad tried to do his internship after he finished high school in the States for the liquor company here, our family company. And my dad just like wild out. Like he wild the fuck out. He was 20, 21. He had like a 96 little Wrangler, classic little dune buggy style type shit. And my dad one day got into a really intense car accident, like right there where the roundabout is coming down Colbay Hill, right where the roundabout was. So it wasn't even there anymore. Remember when it was like the three-street division and you had to choose which
Yeah,
side?
I
Yeah,
remember.
you know,
I
like
miss that. I low key like that
dude,
more,
it was
but
so dangerous,
whatever.
but yo, like for real.
It was.
And my dad like totaled the shit out of his car, flipped it upside down, got out of the
Oh
car like
shit.
nothing, walked out, walked home, found
You
a
got
ride
that.
home. And like literally looking at the wreck, you shouldn't have survived. Like you should not have
Yeah.
survived. And my dad was like, "Yeah, they had an intervention with me, and then they sent me back to Florida, and then I went to Gainesville, and I went back to school, you know." And every time my dad would come back to the
No
island,
biggie.
every time you come back to the island to try to like live here again and you start life here again, something crazy out of the sorts would happen. And then it just came to a point where my family was like, "Yeah, no, I don't think you should be here. I think your life should be over there. I think your wife and everything that you're looking for, you're going to find over there." So he went back to the States and he met my mom and everything, and then they got
So your mom's
together.
also American or she's Cuban?
So my mom's Cuban Puerto Rican. She's a first generation American. Her mom was Cuban, full blown, and her dad was Puerto Rican. And
Hmm.
yeah, so my mom
That's
is definitely
awesome.
very super duper Cuban, but she's also
I
very,
didn't know all of this about
yeah,
you, girl. I swear you were from the island. Like I really just thought you were like Emily, just another Grayo that's just been here this whole time.
yeah.
And
So
I
it's
only
so
had
funny.
just met you.
It's
That is
funny.
funny. So wait, so where is your family like stay in America? Like is it in Florida? Like most of your family's in
Mainly Florida.
Florida?
So like my mom's side of the family is in Miami. Right before Trump got elected, my grandmother packed all her shit and moved to the Netherlands. So my dad's side of the family that was in Florida now all live in Holland in the same house on a farm in the middle of like
Cool.
nowhere, like 5 minutes from the German border. And then my mom, after the hurricane, she didn't go back to the States. She moved it to the Netherlands and she took all the kids with her too. Because they all have Dutch passports. So she's like, I'm just going to go to Holland where I know my kids get access to rights and benefits and I'm just going to ride these like wheels out. Because over there they have this the Chavez Act. So like if you have family members that are Dutch but you're not Dutch, and they invite you to stay with them, they're not going to kick you out of the country. They're like that's your mom or that's your dad or that's your next of kin. So you're allowed to stay
Yeah,
here. So that's how my mom was able to stay in
that's
Holland.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that is nice. I swear the Dutch are they low key friendly with their immigration, but they also not friendly.
they're
But
just very
it's okay.
angry because they had such an influx of immigration after the 2000s, and then they're like, okay, we need to stop offering all of these services. We need to stop doing this. We need to stop doing that. Like when I used to
Let's
live in
stop
Holland,
letting them in.
yeah, because what we
When it's
did
like,
is
you did conquer and destroy a lot of these countries to begin with, but
exactly,
let's just pretend like we didn't
let's
do
just gloss
nothing.
over that and act like that never
Yeah,
happened.
right.
You didn't colonize half of the world. It's okay. But it's funny because after my parents had my sister, and we were like in our third, fourth year in Miami, my parents were like, okay, we're going to go to Holland. We're going to open up a bar. We went to Holland in 2000, 2001, right before 9/11. And my parents had a bar. We lived upstairs at the bar. I was 3, 4 years old. So from like 3 until 7, we were in Holland. I spoke full blown Dutch. I thought in Dutch. I used to work at my parents' bar. I would like serve little beers. I'm like, "Will you have een biertje? Yeah, ik heb een biertje for you." Like cute shit like that. And like we were super Dutch. We were a completely Dutch household. My mom spoke the language, but we still had a lot of Latin influences at home, because my grandma would come and stay with us every so often and this and that. And then when Holland wasn't working anymore, and after my parents had my brother, we were like, okay, we're gonna leave, which kind of sucked because Holland did take care of us. Like my mom was living there. They have this program called Kinderbeslag, in 2002, they would give you 400 euros for every kid you had. So my mom was getting like 1,200 euros a month for just having us. And this money was so that you can buy the kids the clothes that they needed for winter. You can pay
Yeah.
for their tuition in school. You could everything that you need to take care of your kids. This
Yeah,
is
just
your
like
little
basic child
allowance.
care. Yeah.
And that shit was nice. When we moved back to the States, my mom was like, oh my God, I forgot how fucking hard it is to live and how hard it is to take care of your
Yeah,
kids. And
America, they're like, you're on your own,
you're on your own.
okay?
You're
Like,
on your own.
figure it out. If
It's
you're
like,
lucky, we'll give you food stamps.
yeah, exactly. Like the air of like way of being is different. Like everyone is very relaxed in Europe. Like it's
Yeah,
okay.
I love that about Europe.
You
Like, I
know,
love that about Europe. Like, it's more family centric, more we care about our neighbor, more about like, let's have a good time, let's live a good life, and also have, some capitalism in there. Whereas America's all like work,
work
drugs,
until
and
you
work.
die. Literally go to school,
Like,
be in debt until you die. Like literally hamster wheel twenty
yeah,
four seven.
it's just constant chaos and stress, but also at the same time, America is lit. I love it here. I love the people here. I love the craziness. I love like the opportunity. But yeah, it is definitely a shit show. But one the whole world wants to watch. So
That
they
is true.
doing something right, right? Like
That is true. And I have to say, like, I'm glad that I am an American because I feel like that sense of spirit and energy that I have is definitely different than those of my fellow Caribbean sisters and brothers. But then at the same time, it's like,
you can just dip. What you mean? You could literally
you
just be
know,
like, okay, I'm done. Bye bye now.
but at the same time, I feel like they program you to be this type of way when you're from the States. Like, they program you to think, okay, you're a deadbeat if you don't go to college and if you don't get a good school, like, go to a good school and get a good job. And if you're not making 6, 7 figures a year, you ain't shit. And all of that stuff. So it was weird because I came from a
I
very,
think there
like,
are people that think like that. But
oh,
I also feel
I
like I've
still
met people.
I still think like that too, and then I have to remind myself that I'm not in that circumstance, and that I can't allow myself to feel like shit because I'm not where I think I should be in life. Because like when I stop and I like reflect, I'm like, okay, you have a roof over your head, you pay your bills, you don't live with your parents, you have a fucking radio show, you have all this
Yeah,
opportunity, and it's like every
exactly.
people constantly remind me
There's a
like
lot to be grateful for.
exactly. So it's like people remind me, like, okay, don't feel like shit because you don't have a college degree, because despite that, you're still a very intelligent being. And
I don't
like,
think you should feel like shit. Like, I don't think that
sometimes,
just because I
sometimes I
have a
would.
degree that I'm better than anybody. Like, I still think that I don't know shit. Like, even with my college degree, I still think like I'm a dumb ass. You know what I mean? And so I feel like one thing I realized, like, because there are people that treat people that way. Like, if you don't have a degree, if you don't make it. But when I came to the States, like, I met so many people that had different lives or just different situations, and like even like dating will exposed me to a lot of just like how other people's lives and circumstances sometimes really just you can't do anything but try to make the best out of your situation, and you cannot like treat people as lesser than just because their life didn't go according to some picture perfect timeline that's unrealistic and also like stupid. Like humans 100 years ago weren't doing what humans are doing today, and so it's like just looking at where your ancestors were to where you are today. Like there is so much to be grateful for, but I feel like social media and all that shit makes it hard, and it makes you feel like a fucking failure when it's like there's no reason to feel that way. Like you should be grateful. Like there's so much to be grateful for, so
I also
much.
think that social media like imposes like impossible standards that we think that we have to live up to and maintain. And even now, like I feel it in the radio world because I have other fellow creative people telling me that I'm not doing enough. I don't take enough photos. I'm not doing enough social media shoots. And then they're like, "Yo, Hailey, like you should be putting a video out every week. You should be putting all the highlights of what you do from the radio world together and then put it together with your radio show highlights of like when you do a thought from the honey pot or when you do a certain segment." And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. But that creative process of planning it and like really fucking planning it out and getting people to be on board with you and see your vision and not want money from you and trust the process with you, it's
Exactly.
exhausting.
It's a
It's
lot.
exhausting. Like I get so defeated every time I start thinking about like wanting to approach my boss to do a certain thing in the studio because I'm like, oh, I got this idea I want to do. Can I have a photo shoot? And be like, no, you can't do this. If you do this, then everybody else has to get one. It's like what one gets, all the other personalities have to get. And he's like, that's great if you have someone that wants to shoot for free for you, but I know that's not going to apply to all the other personalities, and I don't have $50 to $75 to pay per person to have a 45-minute shoot
Yeah.
and get 3 photos edited. And I'm like, so it's like whenever you think about wanting to do things for yourself and for your brand and stuff, then you're like, oh, I can't do that. Like, okay, let
It's a
me.
lot.
It's
It
a
is
lot.
a lot. I
And
feel
then
you. I
you
feel
remember
you.
like how in teen times my whole thing was like, oh, Mike, I want to model. Let me model. Let me. And Mike was like, no, you focus on writing. You're a writer. You're not a model. It's the same shit that's happening to me in Radioland. Like my mentor will tell me, become a really good radio personality first, and then worry about DJing or worry about Photoshop or worry about being an on-camera talent. And I'm like, but don't you
I
know?
say fuck it. I say do it
I'm
all.
like
I
I
say
can
do
do
it
it
all.
all. Let me
Why
do it
not?
all. And
Why
he's
not?
like, but get
Why
really
not?
good at one thing first, and before you do another thing. Because like I started doing DJ
I
lessons.
disagree with that.
I do too.
I feel like
I
that's for some people. I don't agree with that.
me I
I think
was
you could do whatever the hell you want, whenever you want. It's just how bad do you want to do it? And it's like if you want to do it, why can't you do it? Like it's the only
exactly
thing stopping you is you.
is you
So I
right.
yeah.
His whole
Mhm.
philosophy is like, oh, you're spreading yourself too thin. And I'm like, I'm not spreading myself too thin.
Maybe
I,
you're spreading yourself too thin. Don't talk about
maybe,
me. You don't know what my
exactly.
capacity is.
Exactly. It's like maybe you're self projecting the fact that you don't have any creative space to do the things that you want to do, but just because I have the time to do it, that doesn't mean you should take it out on me. It's like I'm at the radio station 7 days a week. Literally, I'm there every single
Wait, what
day.
got you into radio and like wanting to start a show in the first
So
place?
you want to laugh? You want to hear something really funny? They found my
Yeah,
debate.
sure.
They found my debate video from St. Kitts, the one that we had the first round, and they saw my debate video during lockdown. And my fellow colleague Marlon from the bartending restaurant world was like, "Oh, that's my good friend Hailey. She is over here at Palapa Grill. She did debate and speech for years." And then they're like, "Okay, bring that girl here. Let's bring that girl in for an interview, but tell her that she's getting a sales rep job." Okay, no problem. I showed up to the radio station one day. I'm there hanging out with my colleagues and we're just talking and we're getting to know each other. And unbeknownst to me, my boss is in the back room listening to me the whole time because they said that he was out doing errands and stuff. And then my boss is like, who is that girl? I want to talk to that girl. So then I go and I introduce myself. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Do you want to take some radio tests? We go into the studio and there's like a simulator where you do radio tests. And I like pass flying colors, like nonstop. And then he said to me, my boss is like, okay, I have 6 other interviews I got to do today. And I don't want to see those people. I would like to give you a radio show. Do you want a radio show? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want a radio show, because I was getting ready to weigh out
Yeah.
I was weighing out my options. I was like, okay, you can't live off of your stimulus check forever. You can't couch surf and depend on people forever. You're gonna run out of money. You're gonna have to give up your apartment. You have to do something. You're gonna have to go to Holland and start over. So I was coming around to the idea. I was about to wave my white flag and call my dad and say, yeah, Dad, I'll take you up on your offer. I'm coming to Holland. And then I got offered a radio show, and I said, "Fuck it, I want this. Like, I want to do radio. I really wanted to do podcasting. I had said for a whole year that I want to get into the podcast sphere. I want to start talking to people. I want to start making videos. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then for this to happen in the similar vein, but for radio, I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And I was already like working on this like honey brand thing that I had going on because I was already honey on the beach on Instagram, and I wanted to open up a restaurant with my significant other, and we were gonna call it Honey at the Farm and stuff like. So there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
were spawning off of this honey concept. And then I said, "Fuck
Yeah.
it, honey on the radio, give me that." And we made the poster. It was awesome, yellow backdrop with the classic 1950s microphone, and then the little drip of honey coming off of the side. And I was like, listening that makes you feel good. That's my tagline. I was like, I want to do chicken noodle soup for the soul, things that make you feel good, happy go lucky, mellow yellow, positive inspiration. I was like,
Yeah.
it's time to heal the
Yeah.
nation with good vibration and good radio therapy.
Yeah. People
So
need that. People
that's
need that.
and like I've maintained that through and through. Even some days my boss is like, are you sure that you're equipped to talk about this kind of stuff? You're still learning about this. Like, who are you to be talking about living in the
You can
present.
be wise at a young age, okay? Again,
Exactly.
why are we putting limits on people?
Exactly, and then it took him a while to come around, but then he's like, like you have a brand. You have a legitimate brand. Like you talk about good stuff, even though sometimes you have your little soliloquies and you ramble a little bit. Like, you're on the right path. You have a good message. You don't talk about things that are not wholesome or that don't have substance, and at least you get people excited to start the day. Like maybe you're a little tired sometimes and maybe you don't sound that excited yourself, but people enjoy listening to you in the mornings, like, and to see the growth that you've demonstrated. Before, in the beginning, I just used to announce songs, and I'd share like a cute little Winnie the Pooh quote. Now, like, I have 2, 3, 4 minute rants about things that are not okay. And like, I did a rant yesterday about the service industry, and I'm like, if your ass cannot pay on top of the service charge, then you should not be going out. If you can't leave a $10 tip for someone that took extreme gracious care of you, then you should not be going out. Don't go out. Done. You know? And it's like, I don't get those phone calls anymore in the middle of my soliloquies that I'm talking too much. Like, people are letting me talk. And people are like, we want to hear you more.
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about those kinds of issues because I don't think they get enough attention. Like I honestly, until you told me about it, like before we started recording, like I didn't know that
No.
the gratuity money wasn't actually going to the waitresses or the staff. Like for me, like when I as a consumer, when I pay, like I hate especially like for me, I don't feel like I should have to tip if I feel like the service was not anything special. Like if it was just like I ordered takeout or I just like it was just subpar, it was just, whatever, they weren't really paying attention to me. I don't feel like I have to tip. But for me, like I looked at it from like, well, on the island, like we have gratuity and the gratuity is our tipping mechanism. And so I don't need a tip because, well, the company already put that as part of the bill. I know that the servers that are taking care of me are being taken care of through this gratuity. So I, as a consumer, does not need to tip on top of that. But what you're saying is the businesses now use that gratuity and they don't actually give it to the staff and they use it for other business expenses. And so you as the server
Yeah.
are getting screwed.
You're getting screwed. And then here's the thing, right? Is that they specifically put it plain and bold as service charge, because most POS systems have the option where it's either service charge, gratuity, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
and we can even like put down on the bottom like suggested gratuity. So like if it's 18% and we calculate your bill, this is how
Yeah.
much you'd have to leave, and they still pass by it, they still ignore it. And then some Americans, they ask questions, because there are people that write horror story experiences on TripAdvisor and different travel blogs, and they talk about it. And me, I know that's the one thing that certain employers of mine hated, but I'm always transparent. If someone asks me, how does it work, do you get your service charge, what is it like, is it a pool house? Like, when you work in a pool house restaurant, typically all the servers at one point or another have passed your table, have touched your table, have served you at some point in some way. So their argument is like it's a team experience, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
But these in St. Maarten, the Dutch law says that if any money is received during work is considered as salary and therefore it's taxable. So when the tax man started opening up the books of certain restaurants and started asking questions, and when certain employers refused to pay the turnover tax, that's when they started doing this crackdown. Because me, I've been in the restaurant industry in St. Maarten since 2010, 2011, whether it's working closely with my parents or working for my parents' friends, because they saw how good I worked and they're like, okay, let me borrow your kid for a weekend. Let me put her in my bar for a night. I go in that bar one night and walk home with $200 in cash tips. I say thank you to everybody that I worked with, and then I do it again the next weekend, or I do it one off or two offs. That's how I would make my money, and I was happy that way. But then coming back to the island in 2017, after before and after Irma, and then seeing already the difference on your pay stubs, and then asking, why am I getting taxed so much? Why am I getting taxed so much? And I don't have insurance. Okay, I understand. That's you having insurance on me from while I'm working. Okay, but then why is this happening? Why do I have to wait 6 weeks for my tips if I only work 3 days a week? Why do I have to share my tips if people say specifically that that's for me? So all of these things, I was like the pain in the ass employee.
See,
I was the one person that
I'm
would
just gonna
always ask,
tip the person and forget leaving it
oh
on the
yeah,
table because it seems like
oh
that's
yeah,
the better option. It should just give it to the
or
person.
like me, I was notorious for being accused of having people give me money directly. So then they'd be like, "Oh, you're stealing your tips.
That's
There's
a
no money in the
crime.
checkbook." And I'm like, literally, dude, I got fired because somebody tipped me in the bathroom, and I got caught because they didn't leave like $2 or $3 in the envelope. For like $20, I lost my job, and I was like, it was worth it because the $20 that I got that day, yeah, it carried me through. I used my last $2 to get to work, but I don't even know how much tips that I didn't receive or what was left for me, but because they said I was stealing, they forfeited all my tips, which was like 3 weeks worth of tips. I was like, whatever, fuck you guys. By the way, for those of you listening, that's Amelia's restaurant. Do not tip the people there. You tip them in person. You give it to them, or you tell the person that was serving you, this is for so and so. I would like to make sure that they get their money because now they started doing that to us at Palapa. I'd have people be like, I left Hailey $40. Please make sure that she gets the $40. And then my boss will go in the envelope, take out the $40, leave the rest of the money that was also left for the other people. Because of course they would tip more than just 40. They realize that it's not just one person, it's a whole team effort. And then she'll make a show of it. Put the money in my shirt, and I'm like, oh my god, times are changing. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. Like now, people, especially consumers, they're starting to call people out about that. Like they're calling employers out about it on TripAdvisor. They're talking about it on blogs. And I think if more people, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's shitty, but you feel good because you're like sticking it to your boss in a way. But also, you know that like you're pissing off other colleagues. And then sometimes your boss will be upset about that stunt and she'll not call you to work for like 4 days. And you're like, whatever, fuck it. You're making a point. You're proving the point here. You're making a stance.
But I don't think like you should have to prove that point. I think people deserve to make a livable wage. And like if you're in a service industry and me as a customer, I want to tip this specific server, I with my money should have the right to do
But
that.
that's because,
Period.
and it's
Like,
so sad. But I'm gonna paint a picture for you. And it's these people, they have this mentality, not so much the Americans, but definitely the Europeans. They have this mentality that they're coming to a banana republic, that they're a bunch of baboons. We are, but they're a bunch of baboons running each other and they don't know any better. So let me just give them opportunity and make them feel special and make them feel like they're part of my family and that I look out for them while I'm paying them minimum wage, while I'm exploiting them left, right, and center, while I can see on an annual basis just how much money they've earned to me, because when you have a POS system and you see all the checks of all the different people and how much money they brought in, you could see at the end of the year of the report, this server brought in $100,000 worth of sales. This server brought in $60,000. It adds up. It adds up, especially after a high season. You're working, you got 5 shifts in
yeah.
town, you're getting 14 flights a day, you're feeling that traffic, you're feeling that energy, the money is circulating. Still, they keep everything here so that they could still be at the top 10, top 50%, while everybody else is fighting for the scraps at the end. And I said to myself, I was like, I'm too smart to be killing myself this way. I'm like, kill my brain, don't kill my body. I'm like, I have a brain, use my
Yeah.
brain, pay me more so I could look out for you and do this or do that, because I would always be in this weird role where I'm responsible and I'm treated like a supervisor, but I'm not paid like a supervisor. I'm asked to do supervisor
Yeah.
things and stay late, close, do cash, and all those things. I'm trusted to take orders and to see vendors coming in and all, but I'm not getting paid that way. And then other people think that I'm like, I've had people call me blatantly, oh, she's a manager at Palapa. And I'm like, I'm not a manager at Palapa. I work very closely with them and I work like them because it's like that love and respect that you have as if it's your own place. And then it kind of dawned on me one day
Yeah.
that that's just the energy that you have as a business owner's child and working for your parents, that like everywhere you go, you treat it like it's your own
Yeah, you
place.
do more
You do
work.
more work. It's like
Exactly.
if I see that my bartender is struggling and I'm in my beautiful dress and I'm in my stilettos, I'm gonna go grab that fucking ice bucket. I'm gonna go bring her some ice, and then I'm gonna ask her, okay, what else do you need help with? If I see that there's backups in certain areas, I insert myself there because I know how to do the work, and then I like maintain a flow. Like for me, it's about maintaining a flow of order. So
Yeah.
if there's like 12 plates that are about to come up, right? And there's only one server and the waitress for that server's table is also busy. Okay, I'm going to go position myself at the pass. I'm going to carry out two, three plates, maybe do one or two trips, and then I'm going to go and see what's the next thing that needs to be done. Oh, there's a backup at the POS system. You need me to cash your bill? No problem. I'll start swiping different checks and credit cards so that the flow of order is maintaining. And then that's where I get really offended because I'm like, okay, all these restaurants and these employers, they see that I can do so much, but then they don't give me more work to do because I'm fair skinned and they're accused of not having enough diversity on their staff. So now all these different restaurants on the island are doing diversity hires. And it's just in and out. New people are coming in. So I feel like now I've been here what 14 years, 2008 to 9 is roughly 13, 14 years. I am a Sint Maartener now. You can't check me on that. Like you can't ask me
I feel like you know as much as what any of
like
us
exactly,
know. You know what I mean?
I know the Constitution, I know the Sweet St. Martin song, I can tell you the dates of.
Like you've literally represented the
And you know
country
what the worst
abroad.
part? Oh my
Like
god, and I'm so glad you said that, right? The Duo website still uses my face on their home screen to apply for scholarships now. And you think the St. Martin government would have given me something for all the representation and all the competitions I've done? Nope, no, 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 no,
no,
no. I mean,
they don't
they've
care.
entertained the idea of giving me a grant, but then it's only contingent on me coming back here. And I was like, you know what, that's fine. I don't mind coming back here. But you would think, right? Okay, let me do my due diligence and see if this child is actually Dutch and see if she can qualify for duo before I use her likeness and her image. Oh, I'm gonna rant about that on my radio show one of these days. Like I'm gonna probably call someone. I remember I was on that wave with like different politicians where we were championing to try to get scholarships and grant opportunities for students that have lived on St. Martin, were born here, but because their parents weren't Dutch, weren't entitled to Dutch rights. Because here the law is if you don't have a Dutch parent or a Dutch national as a parent, and you were born here, you have to wait until you're 18 to get your Dutch passport. And then when you're 18 and you qualify for your Dutch passport, they give you the most impossible runaround to actually get this passport. You have to pay like 1,800 guilders. You have to do a Dutch exam, like all of that. But in high school, if you did your Dutch Cambridge exam, you bypass that. But it's all of these things that they put in place for you just so that you get that maroon passport in the end. And it's like it shouldn't be that difficult. Children that like weren't from here but lived here and spent their time here have more national pride and love than they do the ones that were born and raised here, lived in the society, come from parents that come from great families. You know what I mean? So I feel like that would be a great thing and a cause for St. Martin because I would be the face of that. I was like, I'm prepared to be your social experiment. You
St. Martin's a melting
it
pot
is.
though. Like I don't understand. Like for me it's like I don't understand how anybody could say anyone is really not a St. Martiner when like I feel like the only people that can consider themselves like real 100% pure, Swelligans are the natives that live on our land, which there are not many of them left, if at all. Like there are very few people that say yes, I have
Like
Arawak
Arawak or
Amerindian
Amerindian
blood.
blood. And then you could see it in them
Exactly.
too, you
So it's
know.
like, who the hell? Yeah, exactly. And it's like nobody else really has the right to say you don't belong here when our island is literally an island of immigrants, whether forced immigration or, voluntary immigration. Like we are literally a land of cultures from Americans to other Caribbean islanders to Europeans to Africans to whatever, you know what I mean? Like we are a land of so many people, and yet you would think, given all of our diversity, we would be super inclusive, and we're not. Like there's a lot of ignorance and a lot of hate
And it's sad
that brews.
because
Very
we're the
sad.
Caribbean version of the melting pot of like what the United States is. We have over 207 different
Yeah.
nationalities, over 100 different languages are spoken here. And still there's no um like seriousness or there's no thought that's put into place to like maintain and to protect this different multiculturalism that's going on.
Nope. We don't even celebrate our own local heroes. Like We aren't taught St. Martin history. We aren't taught who are the people that matter, who are the voices that built our country. Like, I didn't even know for the longest while that Americans built our airport.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but we're hating on them, but they like built our first airport. Like, there's so much that we should be grateful for. But again, we're not taught anything of our history and culture. Like, I know more about America and America's figures and America's culture than I do about my own country, which is very, very sad.
It's so funny you said that because I feel like I had that so ingrained in my head up until the age of like 13, 14. And then when I stopped going to private school and I actually went to local school and I had that flip and learning like Caribbean history and as much local history as you get in one local like syllabus. I was like, oh, okay, so the propaganda machine has been working really hard with this one, because like for me, it was really evident when they would start teaching you about Cuba in a Caribbean high school and then how they teach you about Cuba in an American high school. And it's very sentimental and personal for me because I'm like, yo, my family is from there. I know the history. I could tell you through and through what it is
Yeah.
and what it isn't. So where it like kind of like gave me that like epiphany moment was when my Caribbean high school teachers would echo that Cuba is socialist. I was like, oh, so you guys actually do know what you're talking about. And then that's kind of like where I started questioning everything that I learned from the States and then what I learned here. And I'm like, okay, so definitely they do make an importance on independence and the Civil War and all days that I don't remember. I just know our Independence Day is officially July 4th. Don't ask me what year. Don't ask me who was there. I don't even know anymore. Like that, like when you stop using it.
American history was like I hated that class. It was so boring. There was too much bloodshed. I was like, y'all need to stop killing folk. Okay. This is ridiculous. Okay. Ridiculous.
It's like I'm sure if I had to subconsciously like get asked figures and what year was Martin Luther King born? What year does this happen? That I'm like it will come to me, but like I totally like I clocked out. Like
I feel. I mean, it's just there's so much to know in the world now. Like, how are you, as anybody expected to know every single moment of every single individual's life? Like, it's ridiculous. People forget things. It's totally fine. But I'm curious, like, do you identify more as an American or as a St. Martiner? Because, like, when I think of an American, I think of like Will, and like Will is very much American. But to me, like, I don't see American in you. Like, I always thought you were an island girl. I
it's weird.
swear.
Like I feel very Anglo-Saxon at heart in certain ways with certain things and certain upbringings and what I experienced in my household. Like I like the luxury and the comfort and the amenities that Americans look for. Like yeah, I look for that shit all the time. Don't tell me that I have to get my water out of a basin. Don't tell me that I have to take cold. No, no, no. Like not having a dishwasher still, like 15 years later, still breaks my heart. When I see friends on the island that have dishwashers now, I'm like, oh shit, you're stepping up, man. It's time for me to step up now too.
Yeah.
Because like me, I grew up with an incinerator in my sink. Okay, like I was taught, okay, left
Yeah.
side, put food scraps, right side, dirty plates. You wash the dirty plates, put it in the dishwasher. Coming here, not having that. Do you know how many times we've clogged our sink? Like first 3 years, like it was hell for us. It was hell doing dishes and being in a household of like 5 people, and then they would wait until the end of the night for you to do the dishes. I don't want to do that. But to get back to your question, like I am. I like to think of myself as a child of the Dutch kingdom without actual rights. I like to think that I've spent more time living between Holland and St. Martin than I have in the United States. Because, like, we would go back to the United States as like reset periods, like, okay, this didn't work out. Let's go back, figure it out, put the kids in school, do this, do that. Or, okay, this relative is sick. Let's go back so that we could be closer to this relative before they pass. So, like, the first 2 times that we would go back to the States was because, like, I remember my grandparents on my mom's side were sick and they were ill. And then the last time we went back, it's because my mom was like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to be in Holland anymore. I don't want to try a new venture. I don't want to do this. So, why I was just always taught that I was American, but I'm multicultural American. I have a Dutch father. I have a Cuban mother. We speak 3, 4 languages at home. Like you've seen the world here, you've seen the world there. So it's weird. I don't know. I consider myself a global citizen. That's the answer.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to identify. That's a good way to identify yourself because I feel like for you, especially, it's hard to put you in one bucket when like you really don't fit any of them. You know, you're you and you have your unique life experiences. Like, anytime I think back to like even when my dad or like my mom like grew up on the like, well, spent time on the island because they weren't born on the island either. But I just always think like to go to St. Maarten at any point and to have like live life there is an extraordinary
It really
experience.
is.
As much as there are things that suck for sure, like just living on that island, it is there's things that you can do that you really can't do anywhere else, and it's just like being able to go to Tintamar and just like camp on Tintamar, or like being able to just take a boat to Anguilla and like go to the different beaches there and have like the best food in the world every
There's so
day.
much
Being
culture.
able to go dive down. Yeah, there's so much culture, even though it's suppressed in some avenues. There's so much culture and there's so much beauty to the people and the kinds of experiences that you can have, like going to St. Bart's, going to Saba,
Seeing all of these things.
meeting all of these different people. It is incredible. Like you have friends whose parents own chains of hotels. You have friends whose parents, you know, work in some of the best fine dining restaurants. There's just so many different people with so many different stories that it is just like I am so grateful to be from St. Maarten. And it breaks my heart to see the island struggling because it's like all I've ever wanted, like I'm sure like you've seen, like this is for the island to be better, you know, for our politicians to do
And
better.
you know, it's I feel like our generation is going to be the generation that instills that change. And you already see that it's kind of starting to happen. And little by little, as people renounce power and they let people come in, you'll see that change. But definitely being here, living here, experiencing being here, like the life that I've lived here, especially as a teenager, I will never have gone anywhere else in the world. I would have never been able to do an inkling of the things that I've done here because in the States there's so much competition. You know, like I was in performing arts school before I came down here. Like I was being groomed to be a performer, whether it was like fine arts or playing an instrument or something. Like that was the path that I ultimately was going to take. And I was probably going to do like a writing based career, maybe end up doing news or journalism at some point. But that's kind of like the spearhead that I was leading. And then to come here and to kind of like get knocked off of my equilibrium and to not play my instruments anymore and to do a complete 180, I still had a much more fruitful experience and time here than I would have in the States. Like to do the things that I did in the community here, to have traveled with you and our friends, and to have done the opportunities and things that we've done. Big, big, big things, big deals. And I think
Yeah.
it, being in St. Martin also it kind of made it possible for me to do what I'm doing now, being on the radio. I wouldn't have been able to do that in the States. I would not have been able to accomplish that in the States without a college degree. I probably would have been working my way up. I probably would have had to attach myself to a group of creatives and get discovered that way. But to have it all happen organically, you know, and for it to just kind of like feel like it fell in my lap a little bit, like I definitely went through imposter syndrome for a while there. I was questioning all the opportunities that I would get. Like, am I deserving of this? Or is this happening because of my face? Or is this happening because of the last name? Like, what did I do to earn this? And then I also was like, no, I think after a while of going through so much grit and working hard and wanting more for yourself but not knowing how to get there, sometimes the universe way presents you with opportunities
Yeah.
and it's up to you whether or not you're going
Of
to seize it.
course.
And a lot of people thought I was super ballsy when I went through with this radio show. I was like, I want this. I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do.
You should be ballsy,
People were like,
man.
what are
Like
you?
life is too short to not be ballsy. Like you've always been ballsy. Like ever since I've known you, Hailey is the one that's gonna do whatever the hell she wants, and she is gonna do it.
And you
Like
know,
she'll make it
I
work.
never saw myself like that. I just saw myself as like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. You tell me, sorry, I'm not going to give you $50 so you can get your prom dress. I'm going to be like, okay, no problem. I'll get a side job. so that I can make the money to get my problem.
No,
You
you
know?
always surprised me, like, always. I was always like, "This girl is crazy, man. I was like, "She's just leaving. She's just leaving us. She's just going to New
I'm done.
York." Like, she's just like,
Bye. See you
"Bye.
guys. I'm
Done."
checking out.
And she went, and she did it, and, like, I was like, "Look at her." I was like,
So
"Oh."
many people were
But
angry.
I think we need ballsy
So
people in the world, though. We need ballsy people in the world. People that just don't care. Like, go live your life. Like, life is too short. And I feel like I'm glad that you are not one of those people that lets like, oh, how is my life supposed to be based on like what other people say get you down? Because I think life is not supposed to be linear. I think it's supposed to be crazy the whole way. Like that is how we're supposed to live. I think modern society makes it seem like life is supposed to be linear because we've had like kind of control of shit for a couple hundred years, but no, life is supposed to be crazy. It's supposed to be lived all over the world, meeting, people having unique experiences and like you're doing
yeah,
that. And I think that's so awesome to see. Like you like American just went to the island with her family and like literally like I really would consider you a part of the community. Like I did not know that you were like I knew you had an American passport, but I didn't know you weren't from there. And I think like to be able to move around the world and adapt and really like engage with the culture as deeply as you do, that's what I hope all people that come to St. Martin experience and are able to have because I think, like, when you're a tourist, like, you're not seeing the island completely. You're
no.
seeing, like, one face of her. But there's more to St. Martin than that. There's more to her than that. And I think, like, you got to see that. And I think that's really special?
I definitely feel like I'm not so caught up in that like matrix per se, like how some people here are. And I've been very fortunate to come across people met that have came here for a vacation, fell in love with the place, decided they're going to take the leap of faith and then move here. And then those same people that I've met serving them become like my closest friends. And I even call some of them my best friends. And they inspire me to like just keep going forward because, yeah, like some days are hard, like, okay, if you don't get a certain, like, if they don't get a gig and if they don't play X amount of times per week, they're not going to make their money and then they're going to just be shit out of luck for a week. But they don't like allow that to keep them down. Whereas some local people, they're just so downtrodden because it's already so difficult, but they don't think, how to be outside the box. They don't see how to be like creative. But then I also like realized too that it's a big energy thing. And I used to feel like I had this like cloud that would follow me wherever I'd go, like to the point where I'd be like, oh, Haley's coming, run and hide. And you never want to be that person in that group where people feel that way.
Yeah.
So I definitely did like a lot of self work. Like I'd spend a lot of weekends at Top Carrot and learning about crystals and holistic things and cleansing your energy. And then I like started to think, okay, what you put out is how people like receive you, and sometimes your energy introduces you
Yeah.
before you even get a chance to open your mouth. So then I'd be like, okay, let me put a little more pep in my step, let me practice more gratitude, let me look at the beautiful things and be thankful for what I have instead of just being like, oh shit, it's another day, oh I feel like crap, I'm experiencing a lot of inflammation from my lupus, or oh I just don't want to be,
Yeah.
so it took a long time, and some days I get caught up in that, like, oh, I don't want to be bothered, life sucks. And then I'm like, no, life doesn't suck. You're Hailey Greaux. Go out there and seize the fucking day and go inspire people. Like, after
Yeah.
making a year on the radio, like, what I tell people now, like, I just want to inspire them, like, if I can inspire you to do something good with yourself, if I make you feel like you want to change your life after talking to you, then I'm doing something right. And I'm further, like, following my brand and my
Exactly.
mission about what I want to do. Because before,
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
felt like I kind of like had to hide a little bit about myself and like how awkward and authentic and quirky I am. But like now that's kind of like my thing on the radio, and I get to own it. So I get to be myself and I get to be a little bit more animated, and people call me honey now and they don't use Haley anymore, and they talk to me about the things they heard on my show, and we like really spark real creative arguments, and I call them barguments. I would go and sit at bars and just talk to people and drink, and then have so much content creation and like ideas for my show, and then I talk about it on my show.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like what my life is now, and I'm happy. My wallet is a little tight at the moment, of course, but I am living the dream. and nothing happens overnight.
To see like how far you've come has been really inspiring even for me, like to see you find something where
Thank
you can really
you.
like yeah be yourself and show people that quirky side of Haley, because I got to see her, especially like spending so much time together in teen times and debate. Like you grow close to people and it's like yeah sure we butt heads from time to time but it's mutual. Like I feel like that's what happens with girls.
And we were
Like
in
they
very
always like
stressful
you irritate each
environments.
other.
We were in stressful
Exactly,
environments.
very
There
stressful.
would be times where we all would feel like one person isn't pulling their weight. And of course, like every time we had a debate competition, I'd like check out. I'd be like, oh, Nick is here. Okay. Checking out. Bye, guys. Like that was how I was. Like I didn't give a shit. And then they would, of course, like it would cause tension and it would make people be like, oh, you got to do more. You got to do this. Stop being distracted. But like when I look back and like I think of you, like you were always like someone there, and that makes me feel comforting. Like having this, being able to talk on this podcast today, being able to reconnect as adults, that's so like fulfilling for me. Because I always be like, oh, I wonder how Harsh is doing. Oh my God, Harsh is at Microsoft. She's doing this. She's doing that. Like I just be like sending good vibes. Yes, like keep doing that.
Aw,
Because dude,
I
I think
appreciate
you're the
that,
first
yeah.
person from St. Martin to land a job that you have. I think you're the first person from St. Martin to end up at the Microsoft campus. That's a big deal. It's a pretty
I
fucking big
mean,
deal.
yeah, I it is like it's weird because it's like when people ask me like how I got here, I can't explain it because I didn't even know I was gonna be here. Like I had no my plan was not to work at Microsoft. Like for me, because I grew up in the Caribbean and I think a lot of, Caribbean people feel like have this experience is like when you go abroad to study, for many of us, you can't stay in the country that you studied in. And so for me, I really like most of my life, I always thought I would have to go back to the island. And I never really knew what the hell I was going to do on the island because of the fact of like, yeah, like there aren't jobs really for people like me, on St. Martin. Like there were, like, I've never met an engineer on the
Oh,
island.
and like the
Never
worst part
in
is
my
this.
entire
It's
existence.
like you'll meet engineers that are from St. Martin, but they don't live in St. Martin. They got their job, they stayed, the company picked them up, they paid for their papers, like they paved their way. And that's why
Exactly.
the Caribbean is experiencing such an intense brain drain syndrome because nobody wants to come
It
back.
is. It's really bad.
Nobody wants
It
to come.
really is really
And
bad.
then when you come back, you're told,
But it's like also what is there to come back to? You know what I mean? Like oftentimes they'll be like, "Oh, like our students don't come back." But it's like, well, like you mentioned, like what are you going to pay me my worth? Probably not, Are you even going to listen to what I say? Probably not. I feel like even when we were, in teen times and we would go to events and have to speak about the issues that the youth wanted addressed, even then they wouldn't take us seriously. And I felt like, maybe once I have a degree, they'll finally listen to what I have to say, but they don't. They don't. Like, literally, that one politician said millennials were the worst thing to ever happen to our government. And I laughed because I was like, bro, like, wait till Gen Z actually enters the chat and you have to face people like me and you that aren't going to sit down and let you just talk bullshit into my ear. You know what I mean? People that actually have sense and knowledge, and you can't just bullshit your way through the conversation because, well, honey, now you've met your match.
exactly.
You
And
know
it's
what
so
I
funny
mean?
because, like, there'll be some politicians that, like, if we're invited to a panel or we're there to cover it, they'll get chills when they see me walk by and then they ask me, are you talking today? And I'm like, no, I'm not talking. I'm just observing. And they're like, okay, okay, good. Because they know that, like, the same
Finally.
things that we used
Yeah.
to echo when we were in teen times and we were calling them out is the same problems that we still talk about today. And yeah, like, thank God we have people like Ralph and other local like fellow teen timers that call these people out because I know that like when my platform begins to really serve me and I can start really championing the things that I want to champion, like I'm gonna like education is gonna be a big thing that I talk about. I sat down in these classes, these local kid classes. I've been like, hey, can I sit in on my sister's English class and see how you guys do things? And the way the foundation
Terrible.
compared to them and compared to what I received in the United States, I'd go home and I'd be so angry. I'd be angry about the circumstance. I'd be angry about the situation, angry that I can't pay to send my siblings to private school so that they could receive the education that I
Yeah.
received in the States. And mind you, I didn't go to private school in the States like that. I went to public school that was funded by the government, and because we had the best FCAT scores, the government would pump money into that school because obviously
Was
you're
like
doing something
pumping
right.
money into the school.
They
Yeah.
don't do that here,
Yeah.
they don't. And I said to myself, I was like, wow, if I could create a program to get kids excited about English, to get them excited about reading, if I could be a teacher's aide for a year and make a difference. And then you realize that there's so many people that have tried to make an impact, and you can't change the culture here. They're like, if it's not broken, why fix it? It is
Because
broken.
it is
Kids
broke and
suffer
it needs to
tremendously
be
when they
fixed tremendously. And it's like it blows my mind because like yes, there are success stories and yes, there are students from St. Martin that do go abroad, they do get their degree, they go get great jobs. But what happens to the kids that don't have all of that? The kids that have single parent households, kids that are being neglected, kids that are not don't have parents that are going to pay for them to go to school. Those are the kids that you need to be concerned about, not the kids that have parents that are going to be able to send them abroad. No, no, no. You need to worry about the kids that are struggling. They need the most help. They need the most love. They need the most support. And I feel like oftentimes they get like just ignored or brushed aside, and then you wonder like why people aren't happy, why people are stealing, why people do drugs, why like why people are so miserable and upset.
like a serious metamorphosis needs to take place, because the problem that we experience here is that it all starts with the household, right? And here, if you don't have a nuclear system where mommy and daddy are home, there's dinner on the table by 7, and you can talk about everything that happens, you're not getting that sense of like family. You're not getting that sense of emotional intelligence, like the things that you
Yep.
needed. Like me, my parents, they didn't check in on my feelings. They weren't asking me if I'm okay, if I'm on the verge of committing academic suicide. No, 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 no. They're like, oh, okay, I can't work the bar tonight. I need you to go to the bar after school. And then after that, I need you to come home and make dinner for the kids. Like, the first time that my parents really started checking in on my mental health was like quinceanera happened. And I got into a fight with my dad. And it's because my dad called me stupid in the morning. And I was like carrying that anger all day. And then at like 6, 7 o'clock at night, we're talking about my party. And then he just said, he called me stupid again, or he said something that triggered me. And I said, I'm not stupid, damn it. Do you know how much y'all make me do and this and that? And I don't think a stupid person could do this, and that. And oh, like my parents were like, oh my God, we're so sorry that we haven't been like checking in on you to see how you're doing, if you're okay. Like my parents, we had a really good relationship in the States and we would talk about everything. But then when we came here, it was like, okay, Haley, we got to do this, we got to do that. So now, as an adult, my parents take the time to like check in on me and check in on my mental health, and they're like, "Are you okay? Are you slowing down? Are you paying attention to your lupus? Are you listening to your body? Are you doing this because you want to do this, or are you doing this because you feel like you have to prove a point to the like?" All these are the things that they ask me now. These were things that they never
Yeah.
asked me as a child. They're like, "Are you happy? Is Haley happy?" And I'm like, I don't know. I like to think that I'm happy, but then I realize that
Yeah.
like life isn't as cliche like that. Like, life is about the pursuit of happiness. You're not always going to be happy all the time. And then when I tell my parents that, they're like, oh shit, you're so fucking wise, man. Like, to hear you at 24 say that to me and I'm like 50, like, okay, I did something good with you. Like, I didn't do right, but I did good with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important. So how can people connect with you and like find out more about your radio show or at least like keep up with what you're doing and where you will go next? If you do leave St. Martin and you go, I don't know,
I
back
don't
to
know. I
America,
think I'm
back
gonna
to the
be in Sint
Netherlands,
Maarten for
wherever.
a couple more years because I do have to put the time in at the radio station. It's not like I'm just gonna grow and then leave. Like, no, I do think that I might be groomed to become assistant
Yeah.
program manager in the next year or two. Yeah, because it's like I am there all the time. I do pay attention. Like, if there's a malfunction in the studio and my boss and my other colleague isn't around, like, I'm the next person they call. So, yeah, but my social media, everything is Honey on the Radio. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. My social media presence is very weak, but like the important things I do highlight, like I do mention them. And yeah, keep up to date with what I'm going to do. Maybe soon you'll see me doing more podcasting work. I know that I definitely want to get into
Yeah.
that.
We need to build a community, because there's so much great stories we can share about the Caribbean, and they don't get enough attention. And I refuse to accept people that are like, oh well, people on the island don't listen to podcasts, won't get into it. I think the people that want to listen to it will. And if I'm not gonna let that stop me. I'm not You shouldn't let that stop you. You know what I mean? I feel like the universe will lead you the right way.
Yeah, like the universe definitely has a great way of steering you to where you need to go. You just may not understand it while it's happening and as it's happening. But for me, for sure, like every time I'm like confused and I fall down, I'm like, okay, universe, what's the plan? What are we doing now? How are we gonna conquer the world today, Pinky? Like that's how I am. And yeah, I a lot of big stuff is definitely gonna start happening in radio. Hopefully, I can start doing more videos, so look out for that. And definitely more collaborative and synergizing with fellow colleagues like Ralph and Sakir and Kristen. You can look out for more of that too, because that's coming. And with you too. Like whenever you want to do something, whenever I plug you in on my radio, on my platform, you let me know. Because I know you're still doing big stuff too with Empower You, and you just
Aw,
started your scholarship program, which is amazing.
I be trying,
Fucking
man. I be
amazing.
trying. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Chatterbox. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to show your support by subscribing to this podcast and leaving us a review. Follow us on Instagram at the.chatterbox for teasers and updates.